Sup, motherfuckers?
What fresh hell do we have in store today, Moulash?
Oh, you put your phone away. Okay.
Now I put my phone away.
Hello. Today we are talking about a rare variant of the GEP, or Gaz et Protection, however the fuck the French say it. Anyway, you guys know what a GEP is. You go on any number of websites and look up what a GEP is, but this is a rare variant that we found, and I'd like to make a video on it.
So, want me to handle this, or do you want to?
Oh, would you like to give a little bit of background?
Sure. So the Gaz et Protection, GEP, he calls it GEP, I call it GEP. One of us has brain damage, you get to determine which one of us it is.
If you go to the website, there's a spinner wheel, and you can spin it, and it chooses one.
Vote now. So, the GEP was a French civilian private purchase mask from the 1930s, I believe. Could be 40s.
30s, 40s, yeah. I mean,
Don't have too much background on this personally. French masks aren't my thing. Go to bots for that. Even he probably doesn't know too much about these in particular. So these were one of many varieties of masks that a French civilian could obtain on the private purchase commercial market that would have been better than any government issued mask. Which I don't think the French really had government issued civilian masks at the time.
I don't know, because there was such a massive market.
Yeah.
Well,
That's the thing about France is it fell so quickly, and there was already such a massive market, for making masks over there.
Even back into the 30s, I mean, the AFM 34 was available as a civilian mask. And,
you could buy military masks on the civilian market. They were just commercial designs that the military adopted.
But France had one of the most diverse civilian and industrial mask markets of any country
in that point, aside from maybe the U.S.
Maybe the U.S., but close second, France. Just the sheer variety of masks that you could buy. I mean, you had the Salvador, the Securite, all these different
Fernez. That was
Fernez. Yeah, Fernez made a shit ton of masks. You had all of these.
The C-38 might have been a government mask. I don't know for sure.
It gets weird. Again, folks, I'm sorry, we're super rusty, but you get into the government saying, okay, this is a pattern that works and it's approved and you guys can make this, and then companies making their own patterns and submitting them to the government and getting approval for those. It's really all over the place. This, and then the other big, especially if you look at Belgium, Belgium had a lot of the same thing, where there were a lot of small companies making very good masks and some very dog shit masks. Mm-hmm. The Engelberts, for example.
That's anything. I'm not going to get too far into Belgium, but a lot of their stuff was, made by Pirelli, technically.
Yeah, it was either made by Pirelli or they bought the patterns
company
from Pirelli. So,
but
yes.
Let me get back to this thing. Just give a little.
We are getting
more.
back to this thing.
So the Gaz et Protection, which I believe was actually the company name and not the name of the mask. I could be wrong on that. Because they have a lot of masks that are called the GEP. There's the GEP ARS, which is effectively an ARS face piece with a different valve box, and that was also made by these guys, I believe. It has the GEP name, why wouldn't it? So, could be wrong. But this was kind of a very unique breakthrough in terms of French gas mask design, because might be, if you're not counting any of the copies of the British hypo hoods that the French made during the First World War, this is one of France's first panoramic lens masks. So there weren't really a whole lot of panoramic masks around in the late 30s. The only other ones that come to mind are the German Volblick gas masks.
Stolzenberg?
Yes, Dr. Stolzenberg's Volblick masks. Probably butchering that, but you get my point.
We are definitely butchering it, folks. Please bear with us here. We have something very important to show you. We're just trying to establish enough background that we don't seem like we're retarded.
So, the important thing to know about the GEP, obviously, is that it's a panoramic. Look at the canister out. Yeah.
Wait.
Where'd it go?
come out of your ass?
So,
Okay.
the GEP, as stated before, is one of France's earliest panoramic masks, not counting some of the stuff that came out in World War One, like the Hypo Hood clones.
But it's a very civilian marketed mask where the key thing is a nice
Full vision.
wide full vision, comfortable. You can see someone's face.
It probably would have been very expensive at the time. I don't know how much these cost back when they were available. They are a very high quality made mask as far as a civilian mask will go, even though these were private purchase. They're made out of these presumably would have been sort of a rubberized oilcloth type material, so these aren't rubber, but they aren't leather either, even though they look like leather. It is actually a synthetic material.
Don't squeeze this too hard though, because
I won't.
These lenses, I've seen these dry out before, and it becomes almost like
These are very, very fragile, and it's actually incredibly hard to find these with the lens intact. And I've cleaned this lens up as best as I can, got most of the dust and schmutz off the facepiece, but it's as good as it's going to be.
We've got two other examples of these, where
And they're absolutely
it's just
horrible.
gone.
They're just absolutely gone. This one's relatively fully intact, aside from some cracking on the inside, which we'll get to in a minute, because that's a different topic. So, overall, the arrangement isn't too different from contemporary French masks of the time. Like, you have the angled 42mm inlet assembly of other designs.
A lot of this is pulled off of the RSC
Or the
ARS.
Yeah, the ANP T31 or whatever.
And of course, you have to show them.
Yes,
You have to show them the
the
GEP.
outlet. The outlet grill, as you can see, has GEP stamped into the metal for the outlet pattern. Some of the earlier ones would have just had a sort of floral pattern on this grill, if I recall correctly. I don't know. I'm pretty sure they were the early ones, but most of them will have GEP. The lens is sewn
By
in.
floral, you mean like a fleur de lis, or like?
Not a fleur de lis, but it sort of had like a flowery, like petal pattern to the holes,
okay.
if you get what I mean. So we're going to ignore this elephant in the room for just a moment. I'm sure you've noticed this, but we're going to touch base on that in a second. It has a 6-point head harness, which is quite the step up for the time, because a lot of French masks were either overbuilt or they were underbuilt. They were either 5 points or
Usually
they were
underbuilt.
or they were 7 points, which is completely off the rails. You didn't need that many points, but then again, the French were making masks out of oilcloth and rubberized canvas in the 40s, so maybe they did.
This is what happens when you let tailors have voting rights.
You have a fairly broad neck strap. It's actually higher quality in some of the German civilian masks that I've seen. It's higher quality in the sense that it's broader and not in the sense that it's a decent material. It's actually pretty cheap webbing, in all honesty, but it's there.
Webbing, listen to the tailor.
The bottom two straps detach with a simple stud and eyelet system, or really this is a D-ring. A lot of French masks will have this system, and it's quite convenient. The mask would have been... so there isn't really too much adjustment to this head harness. You have a few buckles on the back, but as far as actual tension, a lot of it's just a sort of the German coil spring style elastic, where it's not actually rubber elastic, but metal springs embedded in the fabric of the harness. And it works fairly well. You don't really need too much out of it. Scrunchies, yes. But yeah, a lot of French masks will, even into like the post-war years, even into like the 50s through the 80s, would have had a system like this where the bottom two straps detach and you were to leave these pre-adjusted and then install them once the mask is donned, which is actually quite an effective system if you're wanting to train a bunch of people that don't know any better and don't know how to adjust buckles.
And that's still a very common system. You see it on the Swiss SM64 German mask. I think German masks.
Yeah, for a few German masks.
Post-war French masks. It's actually a very good system.
Yeah, that system has actually been around with French masks since the First World War, because I believe the M2 facepiece, or the M2 mask, would have used that exact system for that lower strap. I could be wrong. We have to dig our M2 out of storage and look at it. But anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. So looking at the outlet here, there's only one final exterior detail to point out before the inevitable.
This is interesting.
So he didn't actually realize this. I'm the one that pointed this out to him. So this entire cover is one of few examples where you can actually detach it with this spring steel latch. You may also notice that the metal has a sort of golden color to it, and I don't believe that's how it would have come originally. It's a lot like the World War I British box respirator filters, where they were painted with a clear lacquer, but it turns yellow or red over time depending on the amount of UV exposure. So this yellow color that you're seeing right now probably would have just been shiny metal initially when it was new. But looking with the outlet removed, you see the gigantic tulip valve, which is actually angled this way to fill out the space. It's very cleverly designed for how simplistic it is. And obviously that goes into the facepiece, and we'll show off all those details later. We may even pause the camera to give you a better look inside, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
Alright, now that Duke's done saying all the boring shit, we're going to get on to the actual really interesting part about this mask.
The meat and potatoes, if you will.
Shut the fuck up. Yeah, the meat and potatoes, if you will. Which is, of course, the speech diaphragm.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
I'll let you do that one. I'm sorry.
You better be sorry. Fuck yes. So,
continue.
No, you got it on there?
I'm getting it on there. Continue.
Okay, so this mask is, as far as we know, the only AMF, the only GEP example with a speech diaphragm on it. I said AMF there for a second because this pattern is almost verbatim the one that you see on the AMF 34, yes. 34. And this actually goes, would you mind removing the internal packing?
Of course.
This goes to a actually very reasonably large speech diaphragm, speech cone on the inside.
It was kind of the trend at the time with a lot of masks of the era with speaking diaphragms to use a sort of voice deflector or a speech cone.
It's a speech trumpet, effectively.
But in this case, they really went over the top and used sort of the old World War I style design. I mean, there was a few experimental diaphragm masks in the First World War, but this one kind of follows the same pattern where they make a gigantic metal trumpet that you're literally supposed to speak into inside the mask. Gigantic in relative terms, of course, but
gigantic. But I assume it works very well. It
can't work any worse.
Yeah.
But that is, you can actually rotate this. I'm not going to finagle with it too much right now, but you can sort of see the metal trumpet. It looks like an ice cream scoop.
Would you like me to hold it if you want to work the camera for a sec?
Yeah, of course. I'll bring the camera over.
It's also worth noting while he's doing that, you guys probably can't see it anyway, but there are metal wires holding this diaphragm shut, which actually, I think they have seals on them. Yeah, there's a seal down here.
There are inspection tags, basically, little lead stamped inspection tags.
Well, it's the same thing. It's a seal holding this shut. Anyway, to the inside, you can see this really nice voice deflector.
Or speech trumpet.
Speech trumpet, whatever you want to call it. Speech trumpet in there.
There you go. That's a good view.
Yep. That almost looks nickel-plated.
It probably was. You can see that it's only held in place with this rubber grommet or this flange type of situation. Like, if that rubber was flexible, we could have easily pulled that out to give you a better look, but obviously that's not the case.
I might be able to rotate it, actually.
I wouldn't, personally. Is there anything else you want to mention about that? Because we can talk about the deflection system, because that's...
Actually, yes. Let's talk about the deflection system, because you actually have a two-lens mask.
So,
if you could see my finger here...
Hold on. You got... There you go. Just do that for a minute.
So my finger here.
Yes.
And my finger here.
You can see that there's two separate panes of that celluloid material, and that is the actual airflow deflector. It seems a little bit redundant and counterproductive because effectively what you're doing is the inlet. You may have noticed the inhale valve is at the front there. I'll give you a minute to do that. So the inlet valve is right down there. The air comes up over the inner lens,
and you have these holes up here.
You have holes along the top where the air... Here, turn a little bit towards that light. There we go. So all those holes along the top there are where the air comes in. It goes down across the inner lens, and what that's doing is creating an insulated double pane effect where it's not really doing that much deflection. It still has to come down over the inner lens to keep it defogged, but in effect you're also getting the advantage of having that double pane effect where the ambient temperature inside the mask is equalized by that incoming air, and it can't fog up as much.
It almost works as a very small heat exchanger to balance out the temperatures so you don't have fogging due to temperature differentials.
Yes, I don't know how effective that system was in actual practice, but in theory, it's a very well thought out and very highly engineered, but still very simple solution. But obviously, you know, having a dedicated deflector system is a lot better because it's basically fail safe.
It's a very mechanically sound mask, but only within the confines of hand sewn stuff, because this is handmade and it works in that context, but actually making this mechanically mass produced would be very cost inefficient.
Yeah, but they definitely came out with a very interesting design with the limitations they had at the time. So I'm going to go ahead and put the camera back on the tripod here, and we'll go ahead and wrap this video up, unless there's anything else to mention.
Yeah, actually, I did want to ask about one thing.
Of course.
So, what is the guy in Five Nights at Freddy's? How does he actually get his spirit into the animatronics?
Okay, this I don't know if there's an official explanation for this. I'm sure there is. I don't study Five Nights at Freddy's lore, but I'm gonna go ahead and assume that it's basically. You ever seen the movie Monster House?
Yeah,
it's basically like that.
There's so much psychic energy and shit.
The dead body is stuffed inside the animatronic, therefore it's part of the animatronic. The animatronic becomes the new body, basically.
Okay, so the spirit is conveyed from one object to another, and after the body is gone, the spirit remains and continues to operate the animatronic.
Well, the body's still in there, decomposed, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
Well, I don't know. Maybe they removed it from, like, I know fucking Springtrap or whatever, that guy's got a decomposing body in him, I think.
Oh, right, because the animatronics actually have the bodies of the kids in them or something.
Yeah, I don't know if they still do, or
at some point, I mean, like the meat rots away, but like the spirit's got to go somewhere.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, it's an intelligent haunting type of attachment. It's a very advanced form of poltergeist activity.
Not unlike this mask.
Not unlike this mask. No, it's going to be haunting us for the rest of our lives, and it's going to be stuck with us here forever. Long after it's decayed, its pieces will remain.
I think we're good.
I think we're good. I hope you all enjoyed.